Thank you again, Laura, for going home. All right, ready? Yep. All right, ready? Go. Good morning. My name is Mara Archer. I am a sophomore undergraduate teaching assistant at Virginia Commonwealth University, and today I'm going to tell you about the history, memory, empathy, and possibility about the exhibit that I went to at the Holocaust Museum called the MS St. Louis, which is a ship. So the Virginia Holocaust Museum is located in downtown Richmond off of 18th Street and includes several exhibits, such as, most exhibits are basically reenactments with mannequins about what the Jews actually went through. And here's some examples of those. You've got people starving here, and that's very interesting. The first thing I want to talk to you about is history. And I think an interesting quote that Mrs. Nugent had us look at the sheet with all the quotes on it is one from George Santana. He is I think he's still alive. He is a Hispanic American poet who said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." So I'm going to show you what the past was. Okay, in 1920, the Nazis basically said that part of their party was to discriminate or persecute the Jews. In 1935, under the German government, under Hitler, they ratified German government ratified what were called the Nuremberg race laws. And the Nuremberg race laws included some things like Jews could not vote, could not hold public office, could not go to municipal hospitals, which are hospitals in the city, could not be in the military, and those who were in the military in World War I who died for Germany could not be honored as soldiers who died in World War I for Germany. The German government eventually took over Jewish businesses, The Jews were also banned from public schools, public universities, and from cinemas. Finally, there was so much banning and segregation that there were signs on restaurants and everything that said this: Jews unwelcome. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about my exhibit more. So what I'm mainly interested in is the MS St. Louis, and yesterday was the very first time I had ever heard of such a thing because I went yesterday. The MS St. Louis is a ship that sailed in May 13th, 1939, that sailed from Germany and included 937 Jewish passengers. These 937 Jewish passengers, who were mostly families, were trying to immigrate from Germany to the United States from Cuba. So what the captain, Gustav Schroeder, of the ship did was he sailed 937 Jewish passengers all the way to Havana, Cuba. But when the ship docked at Havana, Cuba, none of the immigrants were allowed to get off. No one wanted them to get to Cuba. So then what happened was Gustav Schroeder sailed them up to Miami, Florida. And in Miami, Florida, they were like, you want to take these immigrants? And the U.S. government was like, no, we're not taking any of them. So, in a sense, what the Germans were trying to prove was, because after they went from Miami, Florida, they had to sail all the way back to Europe to get rid of the 937 Jewish passengers who were fleeing persecution. And so, even though when they were in Europe, they ended up going to the United Kingdom, they went to France, they went to Belgium, they went to Holland, the United States didn't want them, and so it basically proved to the Germans that no one wanted the Jews. No one wanted the Jews. It was like a blank check for the Germans to do whatever they wanted to them, because no one wanted them. Okay, so that's the history of it. That's what that means. Now I'm going to show you what the memory is of it. And of course I wasn't there to remember it, so I'm going to show you a few videos of how people remember this.
For us children, it was fantastic. And I celebrated my 8th birthday in Havana Harbor when we couldn't get off. We stayed in the port for 8 days, hoping to get off the ship. And we heard rumors that the government wanted some more money. And then all of a sudden the ship moved out into the inner harbor. And nobody got off. The gentleman was a lawyer from Germany, and he was more involved in the concentration camp too. And I remember it well because I was on deck. He cut his rein, jumped overboard, and the German his sailor saved him, and they took him to the hospital. But his wife and the two children were not allowed to go out. Well, we knew full well that if we were shipped back to Europe, it would be the death of all of us. We sent telegram to President Roosevelt. We get.
Okay, so that's how some people remember it. They were children when they were on the ship. Alright, so the next thing I want to talk to you about is empathy. Empathy is actually seeing people who were on the ship. I was clicking around the the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C.'s website, and they were really interested about what happened to these 937 passengers. So what they did was they took the passenger cards that people had to board the ships. They looked at them, and then they looked at the extensive records that the Germans kept for the concentration camps. And so I found one person that was particularly interesting. His name was Eric Dublon. Eric Dublon was born on November 6, 1890, and in 1939, on May 13th, he set sail on the HMS St. Louis, and he got off in Belgium. Nothing is really known about what happened to him between 1939 and 1942, but in 1942 he was on a Belgian Convoy 2, which was sent to Auschwitz. In Auschwitz, about under half of the people who came from the Belgian Convoy 2 were gassed, and because his name isn't written in the records of survivors or people who stayed alive as slaves in Auschwitz, it is assumed that he was gassed in the gas chambers and died. He was 52 years old when he died. He was born in 1890. Okay, so now I want to talk to you about possibility. Possibility is saying, what if? What if the United States had accepted the refugees from the HMS St. Louis? What if the Holocaust never happened? I want to put this into perspective because there were 6 million Jews that died in the Holocaust. And if we think about it, I think it's very interesting that in the entire city of Richmond, there's about 204,389 people. But yet 6 million Jews died. So can you imagine the entire city of Richmond being gone? And yet there's only about 8 million people in Virginia. That just gives you the idea of how many people the Germans killed. Okay, so speaking of possibility, I'm going to quote someone who was a survivor from the Holocaust who spoke in the video that was in the Virginia Holocaust Museum at the beginning when we went in. She said that we must educate our posterity about the Holocaust because history must never repeat itself. This must never happen again. For me personally, I think the themes of memory, history, possibility, empathy, and the whole museum ties together in a verse that I saw in the Minnie Roth Weinstein exhibit, which is like a synagogue that they have in the Virginia Holocaust Museum. The verses are from the Old Testament, which is in the Hebrew Torah. It's Deuteronomy 6:24-25. And the verses say, "The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace." So even now, we still have to remember this because it's very important that it doesn't ever happen again. All right, thank you.